So for this episode, I'm covering the foot. So when you think about it, the foot does an awful lot of work every day, and everything starts from the ground up. And it's probably an area within fitness that we neglect significantly. Probably the only attention it may get is your monthly pedicure or something like that. But when you think about it, the foot has an awful lot of work to do, and it gets an awful lot of abuse. So if you're doing your 10,000 steps a day or you're going running, you're looking at probably 3 to 4 times your body weight going through the feet. Even if we're not running, we cram our feet into inappropriate shoes, high heels, which changes an awful lot of things. And we don't really do an awful lot to help our foot health. So when you think about how complex the foot area is, the foot has got 26 bones, over 30 joints, and it has over 100 ligaments, tendons, and muscle. So when you think within the calf area, there is a lot of the muscles in here that actually control what the feet do as well, which I will cover a little bit more in detail. So the foot, the way it is, think of it as sort of 3 areas first. So we've got the forefoot, the midfoot, and the rear foot, or the heel area. Okay, and it has to do all our weight bearing. So ideally, we need our foot to be mobile and sort of flexible, but functional as well. And that's where we have the arches. So we have 3 arches from the front to the back. So we actually have the medial arch, which it should be, in the ideal world, should be the biggest of the arches. Okay, then you've got the middle arch here from the 3rd metatarsal towards the heel, and the lateral arch is from here down the side, and that's going to be the flatter of the arches. So we also have a transverse arch going over here. Okay, so your midfoot surprisingly is a lot further back than what people think. Okay, and you don't really need to know that, but ideally, if you've got flat arches, it's something that I would address. If you're wearing orthotics, that's fine. I'm not going to say don't if you do it, but what I would say is let's work on strengthening the foot. Let's work on strengthening things further up the chain that could be causing a dysfunction, which is causing the arches to flatten. Okay, again, that's for another conversation. I'm not working directly with you, so I'm not going to give you any advice if you are working with a medical profession on things like this. So the foot has an awful lot of feeling in it. So what we call proprioception, so the feeling that you can feel if anything on the hands. Yet we stick these in shoes all day. So you think your hands, can you imagine the frustration of working in doing your housework and that in sort of gloves or mittens all day? And we do that to our feet all day. So what I would want to do, and in an ideal world, I would want you out of shoes as much as possible, or wearing minimalist shoes. And I get it, ladies, if you're going to work in the office, you don't really want to be in flats all the time and things like that. Okay, but with the arches, we need the arches to be quite springy. Okay, and all the joints need to be able to move. But when we're in hard shoes, they can't actually move. So the springy arches need to be flexible, and because it's what facilitates our function and our locomotion to run. So that's an area that you need to do, which I'll show you some very simple work that you can do to help this. What we need to do, so if I'm lifting, I lift in bare feet because I know where my body weight is. I can feel the floor. I cannot do if I'm going for a heavy lift, and I know most of you aren't lifters, but I cannot do a heavy lift even if I'm in socks. I need to feel that floor. Okay. If in the winter and it's cold and I'm in the gym, I'll wear I don't know if any of you are familiar with Skinner's running socks. So they're literally, I think, just sort of rubber broken up and compressed. And they are great because it just keeps my feet that little bit warmer. I feel like my comfort. If I'm running, yes, I do occasionally run. I like to be, and I advise most people that I work with to wear minimalist shoes that have got the movement in the soles and stuff like that. And what I run in is the Vibrams 5 fingers. They're a bit grubby. Some mud on here because I was running in them earlier. So, and those, I know many people probably find them a bit of a pain in the butt to put them on because of the toe area. But these are what I run in. As you can see, there's movement in here and the 0 drop. Okay. I can feel the floor. These ones I've had for years. I haven't got any proper running, well, the running shoes, the cushion ones to demonstrate, but even these are supposedly minimal shoes. Now, can you see here that what's happening? The toes are up, so there's no contact with the floor on the toes. And look at that, there is very little movement. And if you can see here, there is actually a slight elevation. And it's not ideal on the pelvis. So I would personally not even these. I don't run in them. I tried running in some Asics shoes. A friend of mine bought them and they were too small and she gave them to me. Yeah, it didn't feel good. Okay. Now I've got these out, so I know we're not going to run in Olympic lifting shoes, but I just wanted to show the effect of what it does to your posture and what happens to your head, to your pelvis, to your lower back, just to make a point. Okay, I know you're not going to run in these. So what I'll show you my posture out of shoes. Okay, so I've got my 3 spinal curves. So I've got my lower back, I've got so this is what we call lordosis. That's a hyperlordosis. This area is a kyphosis. This is the hyperkyphosis. And then we've got the lordosis here in the neck, or we can get the hyperlordosis, or, and we're sat at a desk and we get the forward head posture. So again, that's for another conversation. So I'm going to get my foot into here. So there's my posture now. And I'm just going to put my foot into these. And if you look what happens, and I'm not exaggerating it, can you see what that's done? Okay. And even these running shoes do this because you've got an elevated cushion shoe. So if you've got a cushion shoe, you're probably, you can comfortably heel strike because it's not going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to do that in a minimalist shoe. So often our cushion shoes, you can't, it changes how you move. Okay. So I wouldn't want to be running like that. So, and I can also feel that my head's moved forward. Okay. So that is not an ideal running posture. So what I'm trying to make you realize is what's going on down here can have an effect further up the chain. And I understand that was an exaggerated version. When we talk about sports injuries, so sports injuries are those little niggles we call, what we may see as a niggle, but that is your car's red warning light or its amber warning light. Ignore it at your peril, because what will happen more often than not is we will compensate what we are doing. We will change how we move, and then we get another overuse injury. Thing that I would always say about any injury or any niggle is, and say you've got I'm going to use knee as a point in call. The knee, more often than not, if it's not a trauma, sort of a ACL or a meniscal tear or something like that, more often than not is a problem further up the chain or further down the chain. The knee actually does what the hips tell it and what the ankles will allow. Okay, and what that's meaning, for the sake of what we're covering today, is running. So ankle mobility. So if your ankles are not mobile, okay, so we can't move them around, and I'll cover some exercises for this, but if they're not mobile, we can't nicely deep squat without our heels coming up, or we can't nice deep squat without and again, I'm not expecting everybody to squat here, I'm just using this as a demo, this is an extreme, but if my feet are collapsing in, see what happens to my knees. So even if I'm doing it, that can have an effect up here. So foot mobility, ankle mobility can have an effect on these. Okay. If your hip structure is not stable and it isn't strong, it can have an effect here. So if you see people that are running and the hips are collapsing or the foot's going out, because that hip's collapsing, so that foot's coming round. Again, that's a hip structural problem, but it's affecting the knee. So that's what I mean with what the hips tell it and what the ankles have allowed it or allowed it. Okay, so those are really, really important things. Pain is an unreliable witness. Where the pain is may not be the problem. Okay, so this is important. You always get checked out by a health professional. So things that you can do for your feet are an awful lot. You can even go and get a massage, a nice deep massage into the feet and mobilize your feet, or you can do them yourself, and it's literally 5 minutes. That 5 minutes could really, really have a huge impact on your running. Okay, as we say, your feet need to move, they need to propel you forward. So what you can do with your toes is you can get your fingers in those toes. Okay, separate the toes, move them around, just sit onto the floor, or even when you're watching, if you're watching TV, watching whatever soaps there are on, I have no idea, EastEnders maybe, I don't know, I don't watch TV, but move things around, get your feet moving around, move the ankles around. Okay, you can be quite aggressive with the foot. Oh, getting some nice clumps and clicks out of there, speaking to me. Okay, and you can do things like this onto the calves, either just massage the calves. Again, you don't need to be too aggressive, but massage them down and things like this. With a ball, I could only find a tennis ball, I can't find my little cross ball, but if you're standing up, you can roll up and down the arches, round. It's actually quite nice as well. So actually, and again, don't be too aggressive. More being harsh, and too much, more is just more. You've got to find a dose that's effective for you. Okay, and you can do things like this. Any issues that are going on in the foot, like plantar fasciitis, especially if it's bilateral, so meaning both sides, don't always think it's actually from the feet. It can be something missing within the midsection area, okay, so core area. It can be lack of midsection strength, stability, breathing, diaphragm. Again, I'll go into a bit more detail on that. So with any issues that are going on in the calf as well, you can be looking at weak glutes, weak hips, and things like that as well. So it's always worth addressing everything. People get so much in the habit that each part of the body works as an individual and it doesn't. So case in point, when I'm saying about the big toe, so not being able to feel on the floor when I'm lifting or anything like this, research has shown that the connection of the big toe onto the floor, there is 30% more midsection activation. Now, when we're talking midsection, this isn't just this area. We've got diaphragm, pelvic floor. Okay, so it's always like the fascia runs all the way up here. It's a very if anybody looks at the Myers, Thomas Myers anatomy trains and stuff like that. So again, a lady that I've actually been working with, I'm actually going to hopefully get to interview her. We worked on strength training. She had pelvic floor issues, significant pelvic floor issues, to the point that she couldn't even lift kettlebells without issues. I taught her to breathe functionally and correctly, and worked on the foot. And there's huge impact and positive impact on her. Okay, and it's really improved her pelvic floor. At one point with deadlifting a kettlebell, she actually felt that she needed to she felt like she was going to leak. And we worked on stuff like this. We worked on how to use the diaphragm, diaphragm and pelvic floor talk to each other, but the big toe as well. So do not underestimate what's going on down here. Okay. So, and again, I can't diagnose, and I'm giving an awful lot of information in a very short amount of time. I would always say with any issue, any niggles, please go to a professional, get assessed. So when I'm going back to the footwear, what you've got to understand is your foot and core sequencing changes when you're in shoes. Okay, so it's really important to look at all these sort of things. And what I'm also going to cover in another podcast is actually the importance of strength training. So all of this actually ties perfectly together. So I didn't want to do all of this together, because sort of like the strength training and stuff, because you know, you probably need a break of hearing my voice. It drives me nuts. My poor dog that's laid there, she drives her nuts as well. But it's the thing that I will always assess with my clients. I train them on the weights for running. I will look at their movement. I will train them out of shoes. I want to see how their feet are. The feet tell me a story, and anybody that you are working with should be looking at your feet too, because it should be telling them a story. The time that anybody walks into my gym, I'm watching how they breathe. I'm watching how they move. I've got a very sad life, even in restaurants. I can't help it. I'm watching. My mind is programmed into watching. It's not my thing. I do enjoy my glass of wine and my steak. But so what I would also going to cover in this series is some ankle mobility exercises, and they're very simple. Okay. So I'm going to go over some sequencing of, can you see here that my feet are flat down here? Okay, they're straight down. They're not rolling in. My knees are under my hips. Okay, and then I'm going on to this position. Now, what I'm doing is I'm keeping my tongue on the roof of my mouth to relax my neck. I'm breathing into my belly, so I'm letting my belly hang. You can see as I'm breathing in, I'm breathing into here. And as I'm breathing out, my belly's moving and it's not doming. So as I inhale, I breathe out here. So from here, I'm just rocking onto the heels, but I'm keeping my chest up and I'm pushing my feet down. Okay, so this is in martial arts, the Cesar position. Okay, this is quite comfortable. My feet aren't rolling in, I'm straight down. So you should be able to sit here, but many of you may find that uncomfortable on the ankles at first. So you can just rock backwards and forwards onto that. Okay, just gently. It's nothing fancy, and it's gentle. Do not be aggressive. Okay, if you haven't had an awful lot of ankle mobility and there could be anything structural going on in there without assessing you, I don't know. You don't want to be aggressive. Okay. The other way you can do it is then I turn. Sorry, you're going to have to look at my bottom a bit. Okay, I turn my toes in and I do the same. And there is slight baselines we can do. And some of you may find you get some cramps in the arches of the feet. Okay, but you can see that these are turned in, my knees are wider. Okay, and again, it's just gentle mobilization. And the other way you can do it is I move knees slightly in and I turn my toes out. Okay, and I do the same thing. Okay, so that's going to feel very different. Personally, that one for me, it doesn't really make a lot of difference to my ankles, but I would say most people, this one and this one, and keep the neck relaxed, the belly relaxed, and do several of those. Okay. If, like me, I'm a bit lazy on things like that, I tend to, if I'm in a queue, which we all get stuck in queues in the checkouts, I tend to, holding on to the trolley, I just do some gentle pulses. I'm not digging my toes in and I'm just getting a nice stretch here. Okay. So I do 8 to 10 gentle pulses. And then the same on the other side. So it's the top of the foot. If you're on a hard floor and you haven't got shoes on, I would put a cushion and I just gently pulse and I get some nice stretches down this area. Okay. You can do the top of the foot and you can do that big toe here as well, but on there, so don't go into pain. The other things that you can do for the ankle is standing with the feet directly under the hips. Keep the toes relaxed, and I'm just gently, I'm not pulling the toes, tilting the ankle. My hips are staying here. What I'm not doing is this, and I'm doing some gentle, nothing aggressive, and I'm not pulling my big toe up. Okay, my toe is relaxed. I'm standing nice and upright. And do the same the other side. Okay, and don't think that these aren't doing anything, but just doing them once a week isn't going to work. If you're at the water cooler at work, or you got back in, or you're doing the washing up or whatever, you can do some of these. It doesn't take much to do. And I like to move my toes for my toes. As you can see, I can get all my toes under. Okay, so they're all touching the floor. So for the sake of the camera, you can see I've got all my toes onto the floor. I'm not saying that everybody can, okay, but just doing some mobilization like this, and you can be quite aggressive with the feet a little bit more, unless you've got any arthritis or you've got fused toes or anything like that, then that's different. Again, I'm not assessing you individually. And like I say, you can get aggressive with the toes and just move them around here. Oh, they click and things like that. So just massage them out. Okay. So an awful lot of information, and I hope I've made you understand some of the importance of the foot and a little bit on the proprioception of the feeling of the feet and why some footwear isn't ideal for our health and our well-being and for moving well. So if you want any more information, please post in the chat group on the Facebook group, and any questions that I can answer for you, I will try and do my best. I hope this was helpful.